The second idea about using perspective involves facing the corner of an object. Not everything in the world is going to line up and face us squarely. Never does, usually. So we need to now consider what happens when we're looking at something that's facing us corner first. After you get your horizon in, you're going to need two vanishing points. One over to the far left, that's our left vanishing point, and one far over to the right, that's our right vanishing point. And this, of course, is our horizon. What's going to happen here is that we're going to put a corner first. I'm going to put it a little bit over to the left here. Let's put a line. And we're going to draw that to our two vanishing points, just the way we did with our 1.1. We need to consult our vanishing point because this time now we have two sides that recede and two sides that are going to appear smaller in the distance. So this is the beauty of working with the ballpoint pen. You can keep your lines very light until you find the one that works, and it will add some energy to your drawing. But use your whole arm. Now, just as before, we have to foreshorten. So if that's the height, if we're having an equal-sided box, the depth you would figure would be the same, but it can't be. It has to be much smaller, shorter, because it's not going to look like an equal-sided box if we do that, with considering how much foreshortening is going on. So you take your best stab at it, and you'll be able to judge in a minute. So just make it light. And the best way to tell now is to try the top. That goes to the vanishing points too. A lot of times people find two-point perspective a little easier to handle because you only have two choices. You can go to one vanishing point or the other, and it's pretty obvious very soon which one is working and which one isn't. And here we have a corner. Remember how important things are on the floor. This box we can turn into a lot of different things. To make a simple chair, we'll say that this is 1.5 feet. So let's divide it into 3. Okay. And so this is 1.5 feet. And let's make an X on the bottom here. Whenever you have something you want to divide in half, if you make an X in perspective or not, it'll give you half. There's the center of our box, the bottom that's sitting on the floor. There's our center. Let's take that to the vanishing point. So now we know where the center of the bottom of the box is. We'll take it to the other vanishing point too. Our chair, for the seat of it, it's going to be 1.5 feet too. That's why we made it square. I think it's a little too tall, but we made it square, so that part is 1.5 feet too. But what if we want our back to extend? That's very easy to do. Let's have it go back another half. This is another interesting phenomena. If you take a line and you make a box, let's draw this too. If you make two lines like this, two guidelines, and you draw a box, and you divide that box in half, and you want to make another increment the same size. All you have to do is go from here through here and see where the next increment is going to be. So let's go through there, and that'll give me the next increment, and it should be the same. And that's true if you're in perspective as well. So here's my box in perspective. And if I want to take this increment and keep it going, I just have to make an X and find my middle. There's the middle. And you go from this corner through the middle and see where it ends up. Now, in perspective, instead of saying the same size, that increment right here now becomes this big, smaller, just ever so slightly smaller. And that's what happened here. See how this is larger, this front part is larger, and the back part is smaller. So when we want to extend this, let's extend it one more increment, the same size as this. We'll extend it. So all we have to do is go from one corner through that, and that'll give us the next increment, because we're going to put a back on this. And we're going to lean the back, so we need about the 9 inches that we have there. Again, how we did that was you had this box that was square, and we divided it in half, found the middle, then went this way to the vanishing point, and we want one more of these, one more of those increments, but we know it's going to be smaller, we just don't know how much smaller. So we have to go from here, this corner, the center over on the far side, go through the center on this side, and see what we get. And that's what we get, where they cross over, where this diagonal crosses my perspective line. Then I get one more increment, the same size, just appearing smaller because it's further away. Let's bring our back up. Quite often, a back of a chair, a seat will be 1.5 feet approximately off the floor, and quite often a back, it will be 3 feet. So if I know that this is 1.5 feet, I just have to double it at the back. So you can take one of your handouts maybe, or something that's a scrap of paper, and bring it up. Oh my goodness, right on the eye level. So on eye level, things will be a straight line. So if you pull something up to your eye level, you can't see the top or the bottom of it. We know how big our back is, how high our back is going to be. Yours may be different. Just draw whatever you have. So I'm using my right vanishing point to draw this side, because I've used the right vanishing point to draw this whole side. Here's a far corner. So that's our corner. You can find our back corner. Remember, where it's so important to be able to see through things. From that back corner up here, up there, Now, even though it's only slightly above eye level, we need to get the right angle. So I'm going to use my left vanishing point, and yours may be below eye level, and you are going to see the top. That's okay. If yours is down here, you'll see this. You'll see the top, and that's okay. But mine's above, so mine is angling down, and I don't see the top. If we're making a little accent chair, what we can do is angle the back slightly. So I'm putting two little dots here and a dot here, and I'm going to angle my back a bit. But I have to do it on the other side too. So I'll have to imagine. If I did it like this, I could bring it across with my vanishing point. But I can't. So I'm going to have to eyeball it, but I'm going to make an angle. And then this, I'm going to leave it straight. I want to divide up the cushion. And this is going to be upholstered. I would just put a little angle on this. So this side is going this way. And the legs are tucked in a little bit. So you'll see the upholstered part will generally stick out. Oops, our leg has to go back here. So you see how much eyeballing we have to do in order to make it look correct. The vanishing points go only so far. Now see, this is what I was saying, that detail is just smaller shapes. So just making smaller shapes of legs and the larger shape of the chair. The big simple box we started with, now we've kind of broken it down. If we wanted to put a pattern on it or something like that, we'd need to make an X. Say we want to go zebra. We can find the center of it and have our zebra stripes come. This would be better with a marker, I think. So you see, you can plan your pattern, but here it would have to go across this way, and your pattern would be in perspective too. And this being the front here. So the major thing to take away today is that things that are in the distance appear smaller than the same object, the parts that are closer to us. So your whole job is to create that illusion. And for simplicity's sake, sometimes it's just easier to put your shadow directly underneath your cast shadow. That's what we'll do this time. We'll just put it directly underneath. We should put one side a little darker than the other too. That way you have some variation. So we'll put this a little bit darker with our hatching. This is where our punch line comes in. We go in with our Pentel sign pen and start pulling out the parts that we want to see and read as a silhouette. And it helps to clarify. So I don't go inside and do the inside lines, I stay outside. Then with a thinner weight of pen, I can go in and my pattern got a little busy on me, so I can go with something a little bit. If we want to have a little table beside it, we could put that one in with 1-point perspective because they both go together. Now this will have its own vanishing point, so let's put it maybe in the middle of the middle here. And we want it to begin on the floor here, and we want it to be, you can choose how high you want it to go, and use our one vanishing point. And this time it's really important that we get an equal-sided box because we're going to make ellipses, circles in it. We're going to make a round table. So now there's a formula for finding circles in a box as well. So is everyone still sketching? So the formula for finding a circle in a box, you take the width and the height and make an equal-sided box. I don't think this is equal-sided. It's always good to check, make sure. Nope, it's a little too big this way. So once you have it more or less equal-sided, now this is something you use all the time, making an X. So after you get your box divided up, your equal-sided box, you make an X, find the center vertically and horizontally. Then you divide each of these diagonals up into 3 parts. Three equal parts. Now, a circle is going to touch here and here and here and here. These marks tell you where the arc of the circle will be. And you've got to be really careful, especially here. You just want to skim. You don't want to make this fit into the box. You just want to skim by, especially those outer points, because that'll give you a circle, pretty decent circle. And you're using your whole arm, not just your fingers, but your whole arm. And that works as well in perspective. You do the same thing. You make an X. And use your vanishing point to give you the center. And you divide into 3. And you just start rolling it around. And you'll get the most surprising looking shapes, but they'll sit flat on the floor. And we should do that for the top as well. It's a little trickier. So what I might do is just estimate that one. So I bring up the farthest part of the side. And in this one, I'm just going to estimate it based on the bottom. So that's our little coffee table sitting beside our chair. And there might be, as long as this keeps the same center, you might choose to have a more interesting shape. Got some flowers here or something. And maybe a glass. So it's very important to, whenever you draw a circle in perspective, what's going to happen is that this front part, the part that's closer to you, there's more depth here. And it's shallower at the back. Just ever so slightly shallower. So we could have drawn our table that way too, but this was more precise. It has that oddity to it. It's a little distorted because we're so far above it. We haven't looked at the cone. When you're drawing a cone, it's very important to think of symmetry. So when you draw your ellipse, if you're just sketching freehand, you make sure that you have the symmetry on either side. Now I'm putting this upside down because there are chairs that are shaped like this. They have little feet like this, and the cushions are here. Again, you can put a straight line. and they stick out a little bit from the rest of the cone. And then they have a back that goes round like that. This is round too, so you've got to convey that. So you see, just with the simple geometric shapes and without perspective at all, but just understanding how the ellipse works in perspective, you can do a lot of sketching with just that knowledge alone. These are quite interesting to look at. And they come in the most exciting colors too. There are also sphere-shaped chairs. Now to do a sphere, I find it's easier just to do a gesture first, to find your way, because you want the same diameter and the same height. But believe it or not, there are chairs that are actually egg-shaped like this, or sphere-shaped, spherical. And once you know the center, see how important symmetry is. Once you know the center, then you can put the base on, because the base is another ellipse. And I think it's pretty wide. So just with the geometric shapes alone, and that idea that there's more space in front here and less in back, you can do a lot, even if you don't have a vanishing point and an eye level. But you're considering them always. You're always thinking that about it. And then the seat, it sits inside. Sometimes it sticks out a little bit. So I also want you to get used to the idea that you draw roughly and then you go back and you beef it up. You take the lines you want to keep and you beef them up. So that it reads pretty much like a silhouette. So that from a distance someone will understand what you're sketching, what you're talking about, rather than look too much at the details. And you can also go in and so I hope that through the week you'll find some chairs and start to analyze them in terms of the geometric shapes, or think about them in terms of perspective, and start doing some sketching. But that's the most important thing, is finding the geometric shapes, because when we draw them, we know how to shade them. So for a sphere, we know that if the light is going to hit here, that this whole side is going to take shadow as it rolls away. So something spherical, I know that I'm going to put a shadow like this. And the cone, I know that I'm going to have a shadow that runs down this way. And the cylinder. And we'll be looking at this more closely next week. But this is telling you why it's so important. But this, you'll see, next week we'll do a lot of this. And that's the shadow here on this one.